Can I
I
ask one question before you start?
Yeah, yeah,
How, like, where are you in your recovery to that? Like, do you still get nervous talking about this,
yeah.
or do you feel like totally,
No, I
oh,
consider myself fully recovered. I know there's that definition is different for everybody, but in my head I'm fully recovered and I don't get nervous speaking about it. I get really excited because I work on it. I think if I didn't work on it as a job, it just would be like any other subject, not really that bothersome. I'll say the place emetophobia still impacts me is when I go to the dentist. And
mm,
it's the first 10 minutes. And my theory is that it's the smell and the sound is like very deeply rooted in my brain, and that connection still exists.
that
But
makes a lot of sense.
everywhere else in my life that emetophobia used to impact me, talking about it, eating out, traveling, laying down when I'm full, all that stuff no longer impacts me. So yeah, it's just the dentist is my last hurdle.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. How about yourself?
I still get a little nervous talking about it, but it's like a body nervous. Like I feel like in my brain I'm excited and like it's like I yeah, like in my brain I'm excited and I feel like rational, reasonable, realistic about it, but there's like something in my body that still is like,
Hmm.
oh, if we start talking, like who knows what that could mean. But I feel like with the fact that like my brain and my body are on different pages, my brain can be like, it's okay. It's all
Yeah.
right. Like you can be nervous, but that's okay. Like we're still gonna do it and it's gonna be fine. So it's definitely like eons away from where I was years ago, but there's still like a little.
So I have a follow-up question then for that because it's really interesting is I used to associate nervousness with nausea. Like basically they might as well be the same thing. And I remember talking with my wife and she had a presentation coming up and she was very nervous. And I made a comment or something about like assuming she would be nauseous. And she was like, I'm not nauseous, I'm just nervous. And I was like, in my head, blown away, I was like, wait, aren't those the same thing though? Like, how are you not? And I was like, do you have like a butterfly feeling in your stomach? And she's like, yes. And I was like, but that's not nausea to you. And she's like, no. And I was totally mind blown of the feeling of like, okay, people when they go to do their presentation in class are not nauseous. And I couldn't believe it.
So were you actually experiencing nausea or were you thinking that the nerves were nausea?
It was just the fear of nausea was making everything nausea. So
Yeah.
my body, my brain was interpreting any little sign as nausea. So excited, nervous, that became nausea. So I mean, you said you're kind of like nervous in your body. Is it start to transition into that nausea?
I feel like it definitely could. It like could if I let it,
Mm,
but I'm also better now where I can be like, well, you don't have like that energy can go to different places.
mm.
It doesn't have to go to my stomach. So that's so funny that you say that though, because I've had so many experiences like that. I remember like growing up and thinking everybody like at the amusement park was terrified, but they were all terrified of throwing up, but they were just better at doing it anyways. And I was just like, I was still too fearful. And then like when I got a little older and started talking about it, and people were like, no, I don't care. Like, why would I care if I threw up? And I was like, what? I thought we were all feeling this. And they're like, no, we never think of, why would we ever think about that? I'm like, oh,
Yeah. I relate to that completely. Or like, yeah, I was convinced my problem was a physical one. And everyone was as miserable as me when they were nauseous. The problem was they just weren't nauseous. So something must be wrong with my body that's making me nauseous all the time. And that's why I'm miserable all the time. And so it was this search for the physical answer. It's a diet problem. I have IBS. I have the gluten allergy. Something was wrong that was causing me to be nauseous. And it certainly was anxiety all along. And I thought that I had chronic health problems, and it wasn't until I addressed the anxiety that I just stopped being nauseous every day, and it's been incredible.
wow, that's amazing.
Um, with your recovery, and I mean, you're diving into like a project where you're presumably like reflecting and thinking about it really deeply. I mean, it takes like a lot of vulnerability, I think, to even talk about emetophobia, but to dive as deep as you're diving, it feels like it would be really scary. I'm curious, like
Mhm.
how you're managing that.
Yeah, I think it is scary, and it was scarier. I think like when I started, this project has been a couple years in the making, and I think that giving myself the time to sit with it a lot has been really helpful. Like I wrote it, and then I kept it really close to me and kept revisiting it, like revisiting the script for like at times when I felt comfortable, and sometimes I didn't feel comfortable, and sometimes the script made me nervous, and it only until I got to the point where the script felt good and I felt good enough that it felt like exciting to make it,
Mm.
like that the excitement started to come in, because I never like sat down to be like, today we're going to write a short film about emetophobia. The first draft of it just kind of happened. Like I was on the beach one summer and I was reading this book and I had this idea, and then I just like wrote this script in my journal. And even like that first draft, I was like, I don't even really know what this is about. Like the emetophobia piece like just kept coming in, and there was a part of me that was like, well, we don't I don't I don't want that. I don't really want to think about that. And you have to think about what you're writing, especially in filmmaking, a lot. And so I was like, I don't know if I really like want to interface with that much. But it just kept like pushing and pushing. And I was like, okay, this is like what the story wants to be. So there must be a piece of me that really wants to tell this story. And I feel less fearful about it than I kind of thought that I would. And I think a lot of that has to do with like one, being prepared, but two, like having really good collaborators. Like I feel
Mm.
like everyone on my team is just like trustworthy and wonderful, and that I not that they are therapizing me or taking care of me in any way, but I just feel like they're holding the project. And I don't know, there's something, I guess it's just maybe it's just like feeling seen in this like active community that makes me feel like cool, like this is, and that we're all going to have fun making it together, because even though it's like this kind of intense subject matter, the script is fun. And I've been really vocal about like I really want this to be a fun project for all of us.
I heard a quote one time that I have found to be very true in my experience, which is like anxiety is allergic to fun. Like any chance that I get to make fun of my emetophobia or have fun with it, it's really helpful. And I think a few years ago, if you had suggested that to me, I would have been like deeply insulted because I would have been like, there's nothing funny about
Yeah.
how awful this is. But when you can get to the point where you can have fun with it, it loses all of its hold over you. It's really incredible.
That's really cool. It makes me think of Jackass, which I like go in and out of being able to watch sometimes, but I'm always in awe at how funny they think vomiting is.
Yeah.
And there was like a time like 4 or 5 years ago where I was watching one of their movies, and it was really like an aha moment for me where I was like, oh, it's really like can be a mindset shift for us. Like, and I think it's really difficult for someone with a metaphobia to jump into like jackass territory. But even being like, wow, if they can think it's that funny, like maybe I can just like start shifting my lens just a little bit away from like terror. And you can. It's hard, but you can.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, again, watching Jackass or any sort of media, like movies with vomit scenes in them. I'm like, for a long time, I thought these are not funny. Why are we doing this? Why are we putting these in here? And during therapy, I started to think that vomit was funny, and I was like, what is happening here? And I was actually worried that I was like losing my empathy because I felt like part of why I thought vomiting wasn't funny was I was like feeling the emotion of that person in that moment of like, oh, they're suffering. And eventually it started to shift into the realm of like, oh, if your friend like eats a spicy pepper, they're like losing a little bit of control, they're sweating, they're uncomfortable. It's kind of funny to watch your friend like eat
Right.
a hot pepper. And now vomit is sort of like moving to that realm for me where it's a moment of loss of control, a moment of discomfort, and you can kind of appreciate that that can be funny, but without losing your empathy for the person in the moment. It's a really weird mix, but it's been interesting.
Wow. Yeah, there's like a part like I feel like I can feel myself like 10 years ago is like over my shoulder, because like I agree with the things you're saying, but I can like feel this part of me that's like, wow, I never thought I would ever be in a place where I could even hear that. It's so cool.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a there's like a big paradox in emetophobia recovery where we want to be on the side where vomit's not a big deal, but to be told that that's where you could end up is like insulting to imagine. And so it's such a weird thing where recovery itself is something scary. Um,
Um, I
yeah.
wonder if that comes from, I feel like emetophobia as a phobia specifically, like more so than a lot of other phobias, because like everyone hates vomiting, we're all dismissed. I feel like I don't know anyone who didn't spend doesn't have a story about years of their lives being like nobody believed me or like nobody took my like how much this affected me seriously. Because I felt that same way too. It was like it was an insult when someone was like, it doesn't have to be this way, even though that's all I wanted to hear. But it's like I feel like I had to get to a point where I felt like I had been validated enough that I could be like, okay, like I believe my fear, like these people close to me believe my fear, like we see how much it's impacted me. And now I can begin to like let that part of my identity go a little bit or something. It's interesting.
Wow. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly how I felt. That's amazing. It's incredible how like similar our experiences are as emetophobics and then but how different we can be as people still. It's so amazing. And I similar to what you just said, I remember being very unhappy with the term phobia
Mm,
because like I was worried someone would hear, "Oh, Willie has a phobia," and think like he's like a chicken. He's a scaredy cat. He like doesn't want to do anything. But my experience was every day of my life, I face a fear that feels like life and death. I know it's not, but it feels that way. And so I actually move through life facing fear way more than you do. But the term phobia makes it sound like I'm a chicken.
yeah.
And it's like same thing with that you said of you had to kind of recognize and acknowledge and validate that before you could start to work on it. It wasn't until I could accept like I cannot believe that I actually did as much as I did in my life suffering from that fear and kind of give myself the credit to then work on it.
Yeah, it's like we have to validate ourselves so that we can like be released from it or something. I think about it so much because I think it's such an interesting fear because it's so visceral. I think it's like primed for trauma almost because
Hmm.
like everything about the experience of vomiting is like intense and overwhelming and visceral and physical. Like, and if it's like if one little thing goes wrong emotionally, it like I feel like it's so easy, especially as a child, because it's so unknown. You can just like latch onto it. And like I felt like I had created this entire narrative around it. And not even in a way that I could like articulate, but it was like as if this phobia had like grown arms and like connected to everything in my life. And in order to begin deconstructing that, yeah, I just had to feel like seen and validated. And a lot of that came from me, but it also came from like just having a few people, like just my therapist or like my partner's been really, really validating for me. I think just having a few people who are like, okay, like yeah, sure. Yeah, I believe you. Like, and kind of both of them in this way of like being able to hold the weight of it while also not like like not agreeing with it, like being like,
Hmm.
yes, I know it's super heavy for you, but like it's not super heavy. And like finding a way to do that that like didn't feel insulting was very healing for me. I was able to
Yeah.
like follow their lead eventually.
Right. Right. No, that makes total sense. Actually, one of the reasons I'm really excited about your project is first, it's so amazing to see someone sharing and being vulnerable and sharing the story of emetophobia because there's millions of us who are suffering silently. But I'm really excited for people who don't have it to see it. And I'm curious, I'm sure you've thought about it a lot. Do you have like a goal of a message that you want those people to take away after they see your project?
Yeah, it's kind of twofold, right? Like I am hoping that the people who have emetophobia, when they see the film, it can make vomiting feel maybe like a little bit lighter for them. Like I'm very set on this film is not meant to re-traumatize people. I do think you probably have to be at a certain point in your recovery to be able to sit with a film like this, that's for sure. But like I think a lot about like you say, like vomiting scenes in movies. Like there's no need for a vomiting scene in a movie about the fear of vomiting to be like traumatic and disgusting. Like it's almost like a little funny the way that we're doing it,
Mm.
which I think is really cool. But the lead up to it is very serious, and so I'm hoping that that kind of like almost like a bait and switch can make people who don't have emetophobia empathize with it a little more, because I think that if you were to see it, I think it's so easy, right? Like to write off other people's fears because you can't feel them and you're like, well, I'm not afraid of that thing, like what's the big deal? That doesn't make any sense. So I'm hoping that this kind of like little bit of a bait and switch where like it goes from being really serious and intense to being like almost a little like silly and comical, and then like that can, it's just like a different way of, I think it, yeah, like that bait and, do you know what I'm saying? Like that
Yeah.
bait and switch can kind of make people be like, oh, like just, it's a little bit of a perspective shift and can hopefully allow those people to access a little bit of empathy, because I feel like that is something about emetophobia there. And I don't know if it's just the internet, but you get a lot of people who are like, you dummy, like what's your problem, like
Mhm.
who cares, it's just vomiting. And it's not even like, well, I it's not even someone being like, I don't get it, like I don't understand why you're afraid, but being like, you idiot, like, and I
Yeah.
just feel like that's really harmful. And so maybe we can counter that just a little bit to be like, oh, okay, I can understand someone else's experience with this a little bit
Yeah.
more.
It's the frustrating part for me. I mean, there's so many things frustrating when people are not understanding or make no effort to understand. But a lot of times, the mean things that they're saying, they don't realize that emetophobics are saying it to themselves every day.
Yes, 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 yes.
Like, I'm already calling myself an idiot and a coward every day. So, like, I don't need you on top of it because I feel that way all the time already.
Yeah, like I know this is a ridiculous fear. I'm aware. Like I don't want to be this way. I don't like being this way. Yeah, yeah. It's like cool, thank you. Super
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah. And it's like, it's frustrating that, people seem to kind of land on like they land on that side of things because they think like, again, you're like, you need to tough it out or something. Or they land on the other side and they do like the intuitive, helpful thing, which is to like tell you, oh, you're not going to throw up today. Or, and they kind of, and we know from the science of how phobia forms and is maintained that that like reassurance is actually harmful in the long run. And so there's kind of like people get stuck on these two ends of the spectrum of how they respond to emetophobia, and it's really hard to actually find the middle ground because you can't expect perfect responses from everybody, but it's hard. And talking about emetophobia, that's why it's hard because the reaction from somebody could be so vastly different. I mean, for you, you've with this project, you've had to share the fact that you have emetophobia. I mean, how has that been? You've been doing it a lot. I mean, is it still something that's nerve-wracking?
Um, a little bit sometimes. It's getting less and less so. And I think I maybe manifested this project partially because a thing that I have been talking about in therapy was the ability to be honest with the people around me about like how I was feeling. Like I often felt, right, like if I was having like, if I was headed towards a panic attack, or if I was just like feeling kind of gross and I wasn't able, like something didn't sit well that I had eaten and I was just starting to like, my mind was starting to go in that general direction, feeling like I have to keep it in. I can't tell anyone. I can't tell my friends. And in therapy, we were like, why? Like, why do you feel that way? And a lot of it was that response. Like, so much of it felt hinged on like my next move was like on how the person was going to respond to me. And I didn't like that dynamic. Like, I didn't want to put that much power in the hands of just like a colleague or a friend or anyone. And so it's been helpful to just have to tell a lot of people and to be like, I'm solid in myself and like I'm going to be able to take care of myself no matter what their response is. Like maybe they don't give a shit, maybe they think it's stupid, maybe they're like, oh, I have it too, or like, oh, I know someone who has it, great, then we can talk about it. But it my next move no longer like hinges on their reaction. That isn't always the case if I'm in a like still in like a tough spot. Like if I'm having a little bit of an episode or an anxiety thing, I can still kind of feel like that.
Hmm.
But I'm starting to feel more and more like I can advocate for what it is that I need, or I know the right people to tell at that moment, like, hey, I'm having a thing, and you know me, so you know, like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, rather than telling a stranger who says something like weird and triggering.
Yeah. Well, I really love the way you put it of you don't want to put the power in the hands of the person you're talking to and kind of keeping it for yourself. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, because it's not fair to them, I feel like, either. Like they're not, if I'm out to lunch with someone, like they're not there to have a therapy session with me. They
Right.
may be a kind friend who wants to help me, but like that's too much to be like my next, like the way that my day goes depends on how you respond to this question, and I haven't told you that at all. Like I think that's too much for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to jump back to one thing, which is, you mentioned that the project you have to be probably at like a certain point in recovery to go watch it. And I think that makes total sense, right? When I started my emetophobia recovery, the first thing I did in therapy was read the word vomit. And
Same.
so, we know that we start early in the process. And so going to a film that's obviously diving deep into it, you have to be a certain level along. For people that are maybe nervous to go see it, do you have any advice for them on like um, maybe not so much what to expect in providing reassurance, but maybe almost just kind of like anything to save them of inspiration of, why should they go see it?
I would hope that this maybe is the first time that people like us are seeing vomit on the screen and feeling taken care of at the same time. Um, I don't think that that is an experience that we've ever had, like maybe in exposure therapy a little bit, but not from the media itself. And I think knowing that that care is built into it, like might make the viewing experience a little bit different. And I think that that is like worth trying. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Um, that's great. I love that. I think, I've done some research on interviewing emetophobics, and a lot of times people have a specific memory of a vomiting episode where they weren't taken care of. And so your message of like, this might be the first time in media where there's vomit in the media, but the viewers being taken care of is like, that's what we all need. So I really
Yeah.
like that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I really like that too. That's been really instrumental in my healing. Is the last time I threw up like a couple years ago. It was like the first time in 15 years, and being able to do it with a partner who understood me and had my back. And I even like texted my therapist after and was like, it happened, and she was training for the Boston Marathon, and she stopped her run to call me and talked to me for 5 minutes and was like, I'm proud of you, like you just drink some ginger ale, you go home, you rest. And yeah, like having care around that, like actual appropriate care, I was like, wow, this is cool, like this is okay, like I felt like held and safe. And so I hope that the movie can do that even just a little bit, because I think that is media for me was just like it raised me, it made me who I am. Like so much of what I believed was possible for myself was influenced by the media that I consumed in good ways and in bad ways. And so I just always wonder, like, how would my life have been different if I had just like, I don't know, was there a cartoon about
Mm.
emetophobia, or had it happened in a been talked about in a movie? I just think it would have changed so much for me. um so I'd like to start that conversation for people.
And it's amazing because it for sure will. And for every person or parent or friend or someone who learns about emetophobia and is able to then start a conversation, I mean, that's decades of suffering that you're going to be getting in front of because, you know, I don't know how long you suffered. I assume it was a long time before even realizing, oh, this is emetophobia is a thing, and realizing that you can get treatment and you can get better. It's a really common story. And so, yeah, every conversation that you start is going to be decades of suffering saved. It's a
I
great thing.
hope so. I hope so.
Um, I had a question for you, which was for someone who's maybe considering diving into their emetophobia using art, do you have any advice for them?
Hmm. Well, one, I would say do it. Like stop considering and do it. Art is awesome because it is like, in my opinion, it's like the ultimate safe space. It's like it's just you and whatever medium you want to work with, and like you never have to show it to anyone. It doesn't have to be good. It can be super process based. Like I love like trying to go into a project and not even having like an outcome in mind and just like working. I think it's a really like, I think when we're in therapy, it's such a like a one and a two. Like we go from A, we go to B, we have like goals, we things are very literal. And with a phobia like emetophobia, it's again so visceral that it almost defies words. At least it did for me. Like I've never felt like I've been able to like really articulate in words like what is so like fearful about this for me. But something about working in art, it like gets to that wordless piece, and that's been like super healing for me. It's been like a way that like I can kind of like touch on things and then I can jump back. Like I don't have to go too far today. Like if you look back at my on my website, you can see like I think it was 3 or 4 years ago I did a self-portrait photo shoot with like a toilet. um and that was like exposure therapy for me, but it was like it was fun and it was kind of theatrical and dramatic. And I had this toilet, it was like brand new, that I had like bought on sale at Lowe's, and so I got to like approach this toilet in these ways, like I got to like crawl towards it and hug it and touch it, and it was just like, and I got to play my favorite music and I had weird lights on in it, and I was so scared that day to do it. I was like, this is an overwhelming thing for me to do. And then I left being like, that was kind of badass. Like I feel kind of badass. Like that was fun. And that's like a weird thing. Like like I don't know, you're never gonna go to therapy and your therapist is like, let's go in the bathroom and dance with the toilet. Like that's not gonna happen. But it was like really powerful for me. And so like art can be that. Art can be anything. It can, so I think it's a wonderful tool, and I think it's underutilized, especially I think we think of emetophobia recovery as like homework. It's like work, like you gotta like keep doing the work. And it is work, but it can also like we can also have fun with it. And I think like you said, like fun, right? Like fun banishes anxiety. So when I'm like rolling around on the floor in this like weird set I built with this toilet, like I'm not actually feeling fear anymore because I just feel kind of silly. And that's like how like when have you ever felt like silly around a toilet? Like probably never.
I that's such a great story. I love it. And for me, it's a great example of something I think is really powerful is when we can flip the script on emetophobia, where in life, emetophobia is coming at us a lot of times. Like someone says they don't feel well, that's coming at us. Or, we have to use a public restroom that looks dirty, that's coming at us. And every chance you get to turn around and go at emetophobia
Mm.
in whatever silly way or whatever creative way, that's really, really powerful. And you walk away feeling like, whoa, I did that. I'm badass. And it totally changes the dynamic. And I think when you talk about like homework, my advice for people is if it feels like it's coming at you, look for opportunities to turn it around and go at it instead. And that, your example of the project with the toilet, I think is such an awesome story where you flip the script.
I love that. And I think that's another thing that makes emetophobia such a like a difficult thing to heal and pinpoint, because almost all the times you're right, like it's always coming at us and it's always like shocking and sudden, and like maybe like I don't know, like you're never like I'm thinking about like the times when my boyfriend's like, I don't feel good, I feel sick. It's like, oh God, like now it's like I have to care for him. Like it's just intense. And so yeah, when you can like go at it, you can decide the intensity of it now too. You can be like, we're just gonna do it, like we're just gonna make a collage of vomit on some paper. Like that's silly and like not very intense at all. So you get to like modulate it a little bit better. Because if you just kind of like, I feel like for so long I was just like sitting and waiting for episodes to happen in my life, and they were just like always intense, always overwhelming. Like you walk by vomit on the ground outside and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I saw that. Like, but then if you start, yeah, you start interfacing with it a little, those moments just start to like, they're just not as intense, like because you're interfacing with it more.
Yeah, exactly. I always felt like I was like a match, and everywhere I
Mm-hmm.
was going, there were open flames. and any little thing could set me on fire because I was just so like prone to it with emetophobia. And yeah, now I don't feel that way, but that's totally how I moved through life was every little thing could be just the trigger because, emetophobia has that nausea anxiety cycle.
Yep.
And as second it gets kicked off, you're doomed. I mean, your day is ruined.
I can relate to that so heavily. I remember thinking a couple years ago, I kind of laughed and I was like, I love that I'm like trying to walk around CVS right now with my nervous system feels like I'm being hunted for sport. Like just because I'm like afraid of vomit. I was like, it's almost like a comical level of anxiety over literally not like nothing. I'm not nauseous. No one's throwing up around me. Like, and here I am still like I'm going into war.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible the feeling that it goes through. And that's where it goes back to like I didn't like the name phobia because to us we know it's not life or death, but we feel the life or death feeling.
Right.
And the word phobia doesn't communicate that enough to people. They think that we're just afraid and that it's like we need to tough it out, but it's you can't tough out that feeling. It's not
Mm-mm,
possible.
mm-mm. And even toughing it out doesn't heal it.
Right.
I toughed it out for so long. Like I'm here, you know, like I spent so long toughing it out and it's not like it made it better. Like really, because I think toughing it out a lot of the times is you have to kind of ignore. And the more you ignore, the bigger it gets. And you really do have to interface with it in some way or another, which is so unfortunate. But at least that's how it feels. Where at certain points it feels very unfortunate.
Yeah. You
Which
found
is which is where Bia comes in, right? Like that, I feel like that's why you made this tool for people to interface with it.
yeah, I mean I found, I started therapy and I did the saying the word vomit, and I was amazed right away at how saying it took away the power that it held over me. And so right away I had some belief in this process, but the process was so scary. I was like, how am I ever going to bring myself to do this?
Hmm.
And I the only way I could convince myself to do it was to just keep breaking things into smaller and smaller steps and to approach it that way and to look for opportunities to break into smaller steps. And so that's where I just started building a list of things to do. And it became like this really fortuitous cycle for me where on the weekend I would think of more things to do. But to think of them, you kind of have to do them in a metaphobia, like because this the image or the video or the activity, like from my perspective, the reason why it's hard is the thoughts that they trigger. And
Right.
so like even coming up with the activity is you're already doing
Right.
half of the problem, which is thinking about it. But like it became this fun cycle of like, okay, what challenge am I going to think of? Add it to the list. What image are we going to find? Add it to the list. And it like motivated me and it other people started using the website and I felt like, okay, we're all doing this together. We're helping people. Therapists started using the website. I was like, therapists who would normally start exposure way too hard now have like a starting
Mm.
point and everything started to just feed itself and I could feel myself every week gaining ground on freedom in my life to do what I want to do and without emetophobia making the choice. Like emetophobia was always behind my choices for so long that I didn't know where my personality ended and emetophobia began. They were one and the same. And it's been really fun to actually learn like, okay, do I like going to a crowded restaurant? Because for 30 years I hated it, but that was emetophobia mostly. So now I get to make the choice on my own. And it's like, okay, I actually enjoy that. But like, I know I still am not really a huge fan of like bars. I know that's not my scene, but I do love riding the train downtown to go hang out with my friends. So I get to actually learn who I am versus who emetophobia was because I've grown my freedom through these small steps. And it's been super fun. And B has been, I'm, my version of an art project has been building this website. And so, yeah, it's been super rewarding for me.
That's so beautiful. Like hearing that, like getting to decide who you are now. I can also totally relate to that. And there are some things like I still don't like amusement parks. I just don't like them. They're overwhelming and kind of gross. But I know that that's like me now.
Yeah.
It's not like because I'm afraid of vomiting. I'm like, it's just like, isn't my seat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fun to get to be your true self. Like I never felt like when I was hanging out with friends or we were doing something or planning a trip or going somewhere that I was ever actually me because there was
Mm.
always the emetophobia making my decisions. Now I get to live life as me and just such a sounds like such a small thing, but it makes such a difference in how I feel every day.
Well, what would you tell people who, like, similar question, like what would you tell people who are like, oh, I kind of want to try exposure. I want to like pop on Bia, but I'm nervous.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I think the hardest step is the first one. So I totally understand the fear and nervousness around it. And as soon as you make that first step, I think you will see that you flip the script on emetophobia and the power will go away. Um, and the first exposure on emetophobia or on BIA, the first exposure on BIA is the letter V. And it just pops up on screen and you look at it and you click next and it goes away. And the and then BIA asks you how uncomfortable are you after seeing it. And actually, people report the most discomfort right before that, before they've ever seen any exposure ever, is the highest discomfort you ever see on BIA is before the letter V. And then
Mm.
after they see it, none. And then people are able to look at words, look at sentences, say a sentence out loud. It's incredible the progress we see in the first week or two, um, because you sort of like break that seal of fear of all the distraction and putting those thoughts away, you finally take the step into it. So I would just say that the first step is the hardest, but it can be easy, and Bia's job is to make it as easy as possible.
Do you think there is like a point when people are like ready for exposure therapy? Or do you think like waiting till you're ready is like the wrong approach and you should just go for it?
I think the hard thing is most people don't do exposure therapy until they have like a rock bottom moment because it's the last thing any of us want to do. So it's
Mm.
like mothers will do it when they know they're pregnant because they realize, uh-oh, I'm potentially going to have morning sickness. I'm going to have a child who's spitting up on me. Like this is my oh shit moment. I have to do something. Or people will run away from their partner who's sick and they have this oh shit moment of I'm not able to take care of the people around me. For me, it was I was eating less and less. My safe foods were shrinking and shrinking, and my diet was really, really limited. And one morning I made scrambled eggs, which was primarily what I was eating, and I put the plate down and I couldn't bring myself to eat it. And I thought, oh shit, if I can't eat eggs, I'm gonna starve. I have nothing that I can successfully eat anymore. And that was my moment that took me to therapy. And so ERP is such a scary thing, and it's so awful that we have to hit the rock bottom for us to consider it, that my mission with BIA is to make ERP easier so you can go before the rock bottom moment. Um, there's sort of like I picture like a bar of how much you hate the idea of ERP and how miserable you are. And at some point they flip, and I want to lower the ERP bar so that you don't have to be as miserable to start it. That's my goal.
I think that's a great goal because I think that's so true. That's so true. Because like why if we're spending all our time being afraid of vomiting, why would we want to go to a place that forces us to think about what we're like? I think also I always thought like, well, I am doing exposure therapy. Like I'm thinking about vomiting every day. Like why would I need to go to a place and pay someone to make me think about it? But there's a difference between like yeah, thinking about it and actively interfacing with it, right?
I love that you say that because I wish people understood that more that yes, living with phobia is harder than recovering from it. You're already doing the exposure part of thinking about it and living life and doing everything every day. The, exposure and response prevention is the current, gold standard treatment for emetophobia. And I think you're already doing the exposure part, the E. All you're missing for people out there is the RP, the response prevention. And That's
Right.
just preventing the avoidance and safety behaviors that feel intuitive but are actually fueling phobia. And your therapist is there to help show you these behaviors that feel good, like bringing a safety kit with you or washing your hands extra. Those are actually harmful for you in the long run, and then preventing yourself from doing them. And you start those very small, and you find that you gain much more ground that way. And so, yes, I totally agree. It's like I'm already thinking about vomit every day, so why would I add it more? Or if I'm having a good day, why would I ruin
Right.
my good day by then thinking about vomit on purpose? It like is really hard to justify that. And I think the actual key to exposure and response prevention is the RP part, um, which is a little bit easier to kind of accept that, okay, that's what I'm going to be doing in therapy.
I think I think that's such an important distinction because I think we get so focused on the exposure part and you're like, I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to be exposed to it. But it is the and I think that like what's been really helpful for me is finding like practitioners who I feel like I can really trust too, because I think for so long I thought exposure therapy meant feeling out of control. Like it meant being thrust into situations that I wasn't ready for. And I now know that like my therapy is much more CBT based, but we do like a little bit of ERP in there. And I just know that she isn't there to re-traumatize me. Like she really listens to me. And I know that when she's like, okay, Jaina, like you're being ridiculous, then I know I trust her. And I know that I'm like, okay, she really thinks I'm ready for this. She's not just like going off of a random checklist. She's like really checking in with me and knowing that has made my recovery feel so much safer. And I think you have to feel safe in some way, especially with the emetophobia, because the fear is like in our bodies.
Yes.
We have to find safety somewhere. And I also think that our practitioners and exposure therapy can help us externalize what's so internal. A thing that's been really instrumental for me is, and I do this a lot with my partner, where I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling very frightened. And he'll be like, well, can you tell me like what it is you're actually worried about? And what will come out of my mouth will be something ridiculous. It will be
Hmm.
like, I'm so worried that I'm going to throw up right now. And I'm going to throw up so much that I'm not going to be able to get in the car. And then like we're going to get in a car accident and you're like stuff where and then he's like what are you even and I'm like you know what you're right that's like those are ridiculous thoughts and I don't even realize that I'm having them until I
Yeah.
externalize them and so it's like I think that's part of the therapy piece too is like saying those things out loud and realizing like we can prevent that response like you don't have to your brain doesn't have to go down that road and make up all this stuff we can just like stay in the present.
Yeah. And that's such a small example of flipping the script, but it is flipping it, where if you're sitting there having these anxious thoughts about, you know, vomiting too much and it ruining the day, those are thoughts coming at you. And we can't help thoughts that come at us. We have random thoughts all the time. But when you flip the script and then choose to share them and then choose to potentially laugh at them when you realize how silly they are, you flip the script on emetophobia and totally like that's a great example of doing an exposure, saying the thought out loud, and then preventing the normal response, which might be to like do a routine or to not get in the car or to cancel the plans. You're not doing any of your avoidance behaviors, and then you've completed like a successful cycle that helps the
Right.
brain unlearn emetophobia.
Yeah, that's such a great way to think of it. Yeah, and I feel like it takes a bunch of those little moments, you know, and you start doing those moments more and more. And like I don't always win them either. Like sometimes I'm like, you know what, like I didn't sleep very well last night, or like I haven't been. I'm anxious because of like where I am in my period cycle, and like I haven't been able to eat right. My blood sugar's low, and you know I just like don't want to push myself today. I think that's okay too. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's like and just being aware of it, you know, like being like we're just like we don't need to do that today like we're not feeling it today but like next time we will and the more that you do it like the easier and the further between those times where you're like I can't do it come.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because as soon as you have the choice, the ability to make the choice for yourself, and emetophobia is not making the choice, you can still choose to not go
Right.
out. But it's you making the choice, and that's the important distinction. And um, another thing I try to tell people who are nervous about exposure or kind of confused about like why would I ever do it is for me, exposure was the goal of my therapy, not the process. And what by
Mm,
that I mean is like my goal was to go to a concert and, get food from a truck outside the concert before we go in. Like that was my objective. I wanted to live that life. And so exposure wasn't like these unnecessary things that just we were doing to do them. It was I wanted to live a life where I could do things that were hard for an emetophobic person, and exposures became little goals to live a better life. So
Right.
yeah, it doesn't have to be this, why am I doing this? It's you're doing it because you'll earn freedom.
Right. It should open up your life to more possibilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
that's so beautiful.
what where does the name actualization come from?
It comes from self actualizing. And I think that a big part of my journey, like I said, my phobia is so entwined in things. It's so entwined in like my family life and my childhood, in like the gaslighting of the medical system with like real issues. Um, and I think that in order for me to really face this fear, I've had to do a lot of self-actualization. I've had to like really figure out like who am I and what do I want? And like we're basically everything we're talking about, like what's holding me back from like, is it me or is it my fears? Like I don't have to want to do everything in the world. Like I don't want to skydive. I really don't. But that's not because I'm afraid of throwing up. I just like don't want to skydive. And so yeah, the title has come from the idea of like finding out who am I really and what is the fear stopping me from doing, and do I want to do those things and making that choice for myself.
I love it. I love the idea of taking the leap to learn if you even want to do it for yourself. Um, that's such a big step, and that's where things get really fun. And I had another question for you, which is emetophobia, kind of in the research, it shows that it's much more common in women than men.
I
And
wanted to ask you this too.
there's some theories out there of why that is. And I'm curious if you have a theory. I mean, there's one that's sort of I lean towards, but yeah, I'm curious if you have any theory.
Yes, I have a couple of theories. I do think I do think that there is this obvious gaslighting of the medical system towards women, right? Like we weren't doing studies on women's bodies until like the 90s. Like what we like just tested seatbelts on women for the first time ever. So there is a lot of that is like very real. Um, I personally myself was recently diagnosed with several different chronic conditions, one of which is MALS, which is median acute ligament syndrome, which means that there's this like compression happening around the nerves in my stomach. So some of my stomach pain has been like very real throughout my life. And that pain has stopped me from eating and it has stopped me from enjoying life. And you can go back in my medical records and you can see my complaints to like my pediatrician saying like my stomach hurts. I'm in a lot of pain. And them being like, well, we don't see anything wrong with you because like the pediatricians don't know about MALS, and so they're not testing for it, they're not looking for it, so they can't find it. And so I spent years of my life having this pain and being told like it's all psychological when really there was something physically wrong. And I think that there's for me, emetophobia is so multi-layered, and I can see that like the gaslighting and these actual physical problems have come in. Also having like not great experiences about vomiting as a child, or not having like corrective experiences about vomiting. They all kind of like come together. I also think I'm a hypersensitive individual. And so I think that I can feel things in my body that maybe other people don't feel. And I think that's something that is like very real for me. And then having emetophobia, I've like, instead of ignoring that part of myself or like letting it lie, I've like hyper attuned that. So now it's like even like I'm a radio signal. So I do think that there is this like piece of women's health that kind of like pushes us into hyper analyzing and being hyper aware of our own body. And then like for me, like I found something to focus on. Being afraid of vomiting got me attention from people because it was an easy thing to explain. I think when I was a child, saying vomiting was understood. Saying like my tummy feels weird or like I don't feel like eating because there's a compression syndrome going on inside me and there's not enough blood flow getting to my stomach. Like I couldn't articulate those things. And so I realized pretty quickly, I think, if I talked about vomiting, like I would get some type of attention. And I think it just kind of snowballed from there. So I do think that the medical system has a little bit of reckoning to deal with. And I do think that women's bodies maybe have a little bit are like tend towards having more experiences in that part of our body, right? Like we have more nausea, we have more visceral experiences happening in the core of our body because of like the organs that we're born with. Um, so maybe that's a piece of it too, but I'm curious what you think as well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. One thing is that, I did this interview project with the National Institute of Health last November, I guess 2 years now. And I interviewed like 100 emetophobic individuals and some therapists. And then I interviewed a couple pediatricians who, just work doing general health. And none of the pediatricians or like primary care doctors that I spoke to had ever heard of emetophobia. Um, and so it was really interesting. And they would be like, "Oh, I've never had a patient with that." And I was like, 9% of people have this, so I can guarantee that you've had a patient with this and you haven't, you know, I'm not saying it's your fault, but you don't have the tools to actually recognize like
Right.
this deeper thing going on. And it was really, really interesting. And I think absolutely like the system is failing in terms of supporting women and not putting them into these like stereotype buckets of like, oh, it's they're afraid of eating because of body image. It's like
Right.
such an easy bucket to put someone into when there's so much else that could be going on. One of the theories that I have is women also suffer from just other phobias more often than men. And there's a theory around women having more active imaginations.
Hmm.
And that made a lot of sense to me because I immediately when I read that, I thought, well, emetophobia exists purely in my imagination. And that's where I've suffered is when I'm always imagining what if this, the worst case scenario, and it's always been extremely vivid in my head. And when I talk to other emetophobics, we all have this like super vivid
Hmm.
imagination of what maybe it's the memory, but it's also just imagining these worst case scenarios. And so the and you being an artist, I figured your imagination must be, you're very imaginative. And so yeah, that's the piece I wanted to bring up and get your thoughts on it.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think that's one reason why like art making feels so important to me because it's like about for me like it's always about like rerouting because I don't think that for like I don't think I can really stop any of my energy in my body. Like for a long time, I struggled with codependency, and that would come up in my romantic relationships in a really detrimental way. And I felt like I really wanted to take care of these people, and like that obviously caused a lot of issues. And then I got this job where I started doing food safety. And so one of the things I had to do is I had to take care of the building so that it was in good condition for the inspections that we were having. And that energy, like, completely sublimated. And I was like, oh, I just love to take care of things. There's nothing wrong with that. I just like shouldn't be taking care of like men. I should be taking care of something that actually like gives back to me or something that feels valuable to me. And so I was able to put all that energy into taking care of these buildings. And I learned so much about maintenance and building care and electrical work and plumbing. And I had a really fun time. And I feel similarly with like any type of like people say, right? Like when you, before you go up on stage, if you're feeling really nervous, you can just like try and turn that nervous into excitement because like you're going to do something you like. So like get rid of stage fright, like just turn your nerves into excitement. And I think about that like with the emetophobia, it's like that imaginative piece that like me being like, well, what if like the car explodes into like a pile of vomit and then all of our brains fall out of our ears. It's like, that's like really crazy. Like, what if I took that and like made other crazy things instead? Like, what if I like built strange little houses that were melting or I wrote a TV show with like a weird puppet who yells at me? Like, that imagination piece is amazing. It's just like doing dirty work. Just like make it stop doing dirty work. Just like give it something to do. Like it your brain needs, and I think that's the thing is like our brains really need they really want substance And if we're just feeding them like fear all the time, not that it's our fault, but like if that's the thing that's just like going in all the time, like that's the thing we're going to pump out all the time. So like we have to get like creativity in there. We got to get like silliness in there. We have to get community and conversations and like problem solving. I also love the creative work that I do because one, it makes me work with my hands, which gets me out of my head. And it also makes me problem solve. And when I'm thinking about like materials or how something is going to come together or like this problem in my story and structure, like I'm not really able to be worried about vomiting or any of the other like millions of things that I am worried about all the time because I'm present and I'm working on something. So yeah, just like sublimating that energy, I think we can totally do it. But I love that. I love that idea that it's like a kind of like an imagination problem. It makes it
Yeah,
kind of simple.
because it's so that's what it feels like a lot of times is the imagination just running wild and down like a what feels like a very negative path, and then we're filled with that negativity, and then we're mad about or we're feeling shame or guilt or anger about why am I going down a negative path, and then that's more negative. It kind of you pull yourself into this little cycle, and so finding a way to redirect the energy or like to understand that this negative emotion is helpful in some way. It's sending some message, and to recognize that piece, but then not allow it to consume you is like a really interesting challenge. And once you can kind of identify and figure that out, um, it's super helpful. I think the problem solving piece you mentioned, I relate to very much because emetophobia feels like problem solving a lot of time. It's like, okay, this person said they were sick.
Yes.
The incubation period for the flu is this many hours. I touched them. I touched, the door handle here. And you're like doing all the problem solving through, and it feels helpful, but it's actually not. And it was like, okay, my brain is just set up for problem solving though. That's not a bad part. It's just I'm solving the wrong piece. And so yeah, I relate to that element a lot.
Oh my God, it feels so good, right? You're like doing all the like mental math and you're like, I got it. Like I'm smart. I can save myself. Like everything's good. It's like, yeah, it feels so good. It's like just take that and put it into something that like you really care about. That's like important to you. It doesn't have to be art making. It could be like it could be writing or it could be chemistry or it could be robotics or
Yeah.
whatever it is that you really want to do. But I think we all have something that we really want to do and we get hijacked a lot
Yeah.
of times by I mean sure many things but one of them being emetophobia and then we're just like living our lives with this little monster running around like wreaking havoc in our body.
Absolutely. Yes. You mentioned another thing too, which I wanted to ask about. So you said like being present. And I remember probably for 25 years, when people would say like they're present in a moment, I was always very confused what they meant. I was like, I don't know what you mean by being present in movie theaters. I never understood because I was always fully aware that I'm in a movie theater chair. I'm six chairs in. I know down the path, around the corner, the bathroom
Me
is all the
too.
way over there. Like I was never not aware of that until after treatment and after my therapy, and I went to a concert and I kind of experienced being present in a moment. And I was like, well, okay, this is what people were talking about. I get what being present means for the first time in my life. And I'm curious for you, how much being present, like how does being present and emetophobia kind of work together?
I think for a long time I thought being like I was like, well, I am present. I'm worried about something happening right now. Like I am existing here, which is incorrect. That's very future based. And so, yeah, a lot of it is like just it's so simple, right? Like it's just being with myself. I've thought a lot about how and this also ties into like medical gaslighting and being distant from my body because I like didn't know what was actually happening with the conditions that I have. But just like I think emetophobia makes me distant from myself.
Mhm.
Like it makes me fearful of myself. And so I kind of like self-abandon. I like run away, I dissociate, I get out of my body. I'm not here. And you can't be present like that. And so in times where I felt like being the idea of being present is like too esoteric to really like puzzle out. Just being like, can I be here in like a piece of my body? That's why I talk about my hands, because like I don't even know if I know yet how to be present fully in my entire body. Like that's a really big question. And I think there's a lot of things that have to happen for me to be able to like really do that. That feels like enlightenment. Like, I don't know. But being able to be present like with my hands and just creating stuff, like, oh, I can absolutely do that. And I think there was a time too where I felt like if I wasn't feeling great, couldn't do anything. Like if I
Mm,
was anxious, I couldn't do anything. If I wasn't feeling great in my body, if I was feeling queasy or my head hurt or whatever, couldn't do anything. And a lot of the past handful of years has been being like, you know what, we're gonna do stuff while we feel like shit. And that's okay. That's okay, because we're not always gonna feel good. And knowing that I can continue working through those feelings has made me feel more present, so much to the point where the last time I threw up I was at work and I like continued to work until I literally couldn't stand and was like like something actually strange might be going on, like something new might be happening to my body right now, I think. And I didn't even know I was going to be sick until my partner, because we were working on a project together, came in the room and I looked at him and I said, I'm going to throw up, we need to leave. And I heard myself and I was like, I didn't even know I knew that. Because I think there's something about emetophobia, like, right, like people say like when you're going to throw up, you know. And I was always like, no, you don't know, because I think I'm going to throw up all the time. But when you actually are going to throw up, like by like literally words came out of my mouth that I didn't even know. um and something about that feels like presence in my body too, in a way. There's a meme, I don't know if you've seen this meme, that says like vomiting is the last truly zen experience left in the human condition. Like if we're on our phone while vomiting, God has lost. And I think that's so funny, because I thought about that too, like being present and being like, I'm going to vomit. And then when I was vomiting, I was like, yeah, there's like nowhere else I can be
yeah.
but here. And it wasn't even that bad. It was like I kind of, without, not in a dissociative way, but like kind of took a back seat to my body and was able to be like, wow, like what a machine. Like she's doing what she needs to do. And she's got it. Like, and there was a part of me that was like, oh God, like what if I can't breathe? And then I was like, no, my body's gonna like, she can stop to take a breath. Like she knows what she's doing. It's interesting.
It's so interesting. And for me, like the turning point in my recovery where I considered myself recovered was staying present in my body during a moment of really strong nausea.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think similarly, like when I would get to that point, no matter how much I prepped about it beforehand, I would leave mentally. I'm gone. And I'm trying as hard as I can to not be in that moment in my body and feeling, experiencing everything. And so I would literally be at the end of my, at that stage of my recovery, in the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror saying, your name is Willie. You're feeling nauseous. You're going to stay present in this moment. And like, it took a couple times of that for me to actually just, I think you put it so well, like trust my body and take a little bit of a back seat, but be there and experience the feeling. And then, um, that was such a massive turning point. So it's so interesting. So interesting.
It's still so hard. I still find nausea harder almost than vomiting, because it's that like in between wibbly wobbly unknown place, and like it comes in these like waves and surges, and you have to be present in a different way than like when you're actually vomiting. And it really is true, like when you vomit, like man, you feel so much better. When I threw up out, like I can see where I threw up out there. Like I was like, man, like why didn't I spend 2 hours like writhing on a couch? I threw up. I was like, oh my God, like what a relief. I feel amazing. Like I needed to get that out of my body. And I was just like making it worse. Like it's just, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. And, but it's one of those things where we can all say it, and until you feel it, it's a different difference.
Yeah. Cause people said that to my therapist, was always like, you feel better when you throw up. And I was like, yeah, maybe you do.
Right.
I don't.
Right.
But I don't know that. I don't know. I just assumed. But no, I felt better.
Yeah.
I felt so much better.
Amazing. I
Um,
feel like I could talk about emetophobia
I
for
know.
hours.
It's honestly like really fun to talk with someone else about it. Like I feel like yeah, this is such a cool conversation because I feel like other people are like, "Oh wow, that's really interesting that you feel that way." It's not usually that I'm like people are like, "Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying."
Yeah. Yeah. And it just blows me away too about how different we can be, but how similar our experiences are at the same time. Or like it's really incredible. You know, there's more emetophobia research coming out where they're doing surveys like all around the world. And it's been so amazing to see like the prevalence is like pretty consistent everywhere in like
Mm,
different cultures and different languages in places where, you know, relationship with food is different.
mm.
Like I'm just amazed that it's present everywhere and the experience seems to be obviously different, but many core elements are still the same. It's so interesting to me.
So I'm so glad that research is being done. I think it's so debilitating to people. Um yeah, I just want people to feel better.
I think your film is going to be such an awesome leap in the conversation about emetophobia in the world of like having this media to point to again for people with emetophobia, but I'm really excited for people without emetophobia to see it and to hear about it and to learn about it, and to open the door for their emetophobic friends to come through. I think that's going to be such an amazing impact. Um,
I really
I,
hope so. I think that's the coolest part about movies is you get a glimpse into someone else's life
yes.
and their lived experience.
You, I think you mentioned on email that the filming of the project was postponed. Is there, I mean, how are things looking in terms of the project and timelines and stuff?
Yeah, we're aiming for May now. So I think this week we're gonna pick a new date, but it's just an ambitious project. Like we're hand building three of the sets because it takes place kind of in like what I like to call like a dream world. And that's just something I've always wanted to do. So it's just like a little bit a bigger of a physical undertaking. But I also, like I said, like I want this project to be fun. And one of the things about short films that I think it can be difficult, but also can be so great is like there really is no timeline. Like we don't have like we don't have like financial investors breathing down our necks for a return on anything. Like there is no reason to rush something like
Yeah.
this. Time is really the best thing that we can have, and we were all just feeling pressed for time, and like this gives us more time to breathe and to play. There's like a really great David Lynch quote where he's like cursing out how quick their schedule is on set because he's like, God, we don't have any time to dream. And I just think of that like I really want to be able to build these spaces and like allow the actors to inhabit them a little bit before we're like, okay, we're on set and we're filming and let's go, like, let's get in out. Like
Yeah.
to be able to have some rehearsals and like sit in the sets. And I'm very much of the mind that like the spaces that I build for people to inhabit are like accurate down to the detail because I think that's
Mm.
something that can just be felt. And I think in order to do that, you have to spend a lot of time in there. And so like I'm working on the main character's bedroom and it's just nice to have time now. And I just kind of like go in there a couple times a week with some new things and I move things around and I'm thinking about like what different objects mean or how the room feels. And so yeah, that's the coolest part about film, I think, is you get to spend so much time in a world that you make. And I know how sad it is for it to end. So maybe even selfishly, I'm happy that we get to spend a little more time in this like the dreamy pre-world before it all happens.
Yeah. That's so, I'm so excited about it. I'm so glad that you get to take the time and that you are taking the time. Um, I'm a big believer in like most things are possible with time. That's sort of like the main piece that we need. If, you know, anytime we want to do something, just find a way to get the time. The rest will come along. And I think even for emetophobia recovery, if you can find the time to focus on recovery and flip that script that we've been talking about and just put in the work, and maybe not work's not the right word. I don't want to say that. Put in the time to sit with it. You know, I think that's the magic to a lot of things.
I think you're right. I think you're totally right.
If only we had more time.
I think we have just enough time.
Yeah, that's true.